Since its release in 2020, Genshin Impact has introduced to us a plethora of playable characters, some completely transforming the meta and gameplay we once knew, and others, well, end up becoming a little more niche. However, with the release of 5.7, Genshin Impact's 100th playable character has finally arrived, one whose hype and anticipation has been palpable even prior to her first appearance as an NPC 2 years ago in Fontaine. A resident of the Abyss, a disciple of one of the 5 centers of Conria, and the mysterious master to one of the earliest playable characters, Skirk's slow and steady introduction is the perfect representation of how much of the story of Teyvat has been just under our noses this whole time, and makes her the perfect one to hold the title of the 100th playable character. Now, it's time to put her to the test, and see if we can beat Genshin Impact only using Skirk.
I am Skirk, disciple of Sirtologi, the Foul. You've proven your strength to me along your journey, and earned the right to speak to me as an equal. Now, let me witness how your fate unfolds.
The rules are the same as always. I can only use Skirk, but I can use other characters if necessary to move forward the Archon quest. All swords are allowed, but if I end up getting your signature weapon, I can't use it until after Inazuma. Additionally, I cannot play in co-op. Otherwise, anything goes. Now, there are 2 things that I absolutely love: amazing character designs and cute trinkets. While Skirk fulfills one of those, she's not really one for cute things. At least, not that we know of. Which makes this video's sponsor, YumeTwins, the perfect addition. YumeTwins wants to invite everyone to experience Japan's world-famous kawaii culture from the comfort of your own home through a monthly subscription box. YumeTwins is a monthly kawaii subscription box full of high-quality, adorable plushies and super cute trending items straight from Japan. Each month, you'll get a box stuffed with adorable licensed Japanese merchandise ranging from plushies, squishies, practical goods for daily use, stationaries, and more. This month's YumeTwins box is full of items to help you enjoy a picnic and beat the summer heat without sacrificing cuteness with the theme Kawaii Sushi Picnic Party. Experience the cutest outdoor adventure with your favorite Sanrio characters. And just for this unboxing, I brought out some of my favorite cute little friends. And Media's Bokoris. So what's in this month's box? Up first is a Sanrio Onigiri hand towel. This adorable towel is compact and perfect to hang on a bag like a plushie, but unfold it to reveal a super soft hand towel that provides both a cute accessory and practical daily use. Now, sometimes cute accessories like this are impossible to return to their original shape after unfolding it, but I had no issue returning this to its original shape after use, so worry not. For the Onigiri towel, you can either get Hello Kitty, Cinema Roll, Gudetama, or you can match with me with Pochako. Speaking of Pochako, he joins his fellow Sanrio friends Hello Kitty and Dear Daniel, Kuromi and My Melody, Little Twin Stars, Kuropi, and Pom Pom Purin on this Sanrio picnic cooler bag. Keep your snacks and drinks cool while looking cute, or get a jump start on back to school shopping by making this your new lunchbox. With a lightweight design and secure zip closure, it's adorable and functional. This is just a sample of what you can get in a box. Each box has between 5 to 7 cute goodies each month. You can look forward to licensed character goods from famous Japanese brands, YumeTwins original and exclusive goodies, stationaries, and more. If you get this box, make sure you leave me a comment and let me know what surprises you get. Each box also includes an information booklet giving more details on each item as well as sharing kawaii culture in Japan. This month, get to know Sanrio. With a history on the characters and their collabs, some of the more unique Sanrio stars, for the record this is one of my favorites, as well as the surprisingly popular combination of Sanrio and sushi. There's also a chance to enter contests for more prizes, including a free 3-month YumeTwins subscription. Make sure you order before the 15th of July to get your hands on this box. You can follow the link in the description and use the code REN to get $5 off your first order. My code also works with Sakura Co., a regular friend of the channel which specializes in traditional Japanese teas and snacks, No Make No Life, which contains Korean and Japanese cosmetics and skincare, and of course Tokyo Treat, which is a monthly Japanese snack box you can see me unbox in some previous videos. Thank you so much to YumeTwins for sponsoring this video, and now let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact with only Skirk. Before officially starting the challenge, I opted to first do a trial run, and in doing so, I was instantly hit with how insane she is with Escoffier on her team. Unfortunately, I neither pulled for Escoffier on my main account, nor do we get her to use in this challenge. But it's a nice treat to see before we dive in. Having completed the trial, it's officially time to begin. Up first are the 3 temples, and Amber's temple gives us an initial hiccup because despite being taller, if only for her heels, than other short female models, Skirk still struggled jumping over the vines. With Skirk, I decided that for future challenges, I'm going to do what I can to avoid any sort of gameplay tutorials and only watch the collected miscellany once I finish Mondstadt. With the release of more kit-complex characters, I've started having the belief that you shouldn't need to seek out a how-to-play tutorial for a character. That's kind of why I do these videos. In my opinion, you should be able to learn enough just from things that are within the game, like the trials, for example. Plus, it's easier to get a feel for a character when it's early game, and I like to learn as I go. Not to mention, Skirk's playstyle, especially with a solo run, seems to be just strictly vibes, so it's not that big of a deal. I've pretty much given up trying to skip Amber's domain on any of these accounts unless the character has a specific ability that makes it easier, because Well, it's possible, but it takes too long. In the spirit of wasting no time, Skirk takes out the enemies with an alarming amount of ease, and we complete Amber's domain.
Traveler, unless I'm mistaken, you don't seem to have a vision.
Correct. Kaya's domain means that for the first time, I can actually use cryo like the tutorial explains to turn off the pyro machines. Could I just jump over them like I do in every other challenge? Well, yeah, but where's the fun in that? Despite Skirk being cryo and being able to make an ice bridge over the water, we instead show off her skill's ability to float over the water, helping us finish Kaya's domain. Finally, we have Lisa's domain, and it was at this point that I learned Skirk's skill is in fact different from Mizuki's, and she can't use it to fly. I guess we have to skip Lisa's domain the old-fashioned way. Oh well. With the 3 domains complete, we unlock the full map and finish Act 1, meaning it's time to grind to AR10 while discussing the pros and cons of Skirk, both in general and from a solo challenge perspective. Now, from the start, the most glaringly obvious pro is the fact Skirk is insanely powerful. For a lot of powerful characters, you don't necessarily see that strength in early game, since you have to dedicate the time to giving them a proper build, leveling their talents, getting a good weapon, and so on. Skirk, though? She's OP. Full stop. For the first section of this challenge, she either had no artifacts or just whatever artifacts I've picked up from chests. I don't end up getting much of a useful artifact build, if you even call it that, until probably the end of Liyue. Meanwhile, for this whole video, with like 2 exceptions, she just used Harbinger of Dawn for her weapon. Skirk is incredibly powerful just as a baseline, and requires no real outside effort or heavy thinking on how to build her. And if you do put in the work to build her, well, I imagine you'll probably do okay with the new Abyss. Something I find a little difficult in early game, especially in solo challenges, is energy recharge. With only 1 character on your team, you lack the ability to have a designated battery, and early game artifacts tend to prioritize attack percentage or HP instead of something like energy recharge. Skirk, however, doesn't have that issue. For all intents and purposes, Skirk is essentially a perfect solo character. Yes, she gains a ton of benefit from having a team, this is still Genshin Impact after all, but she's able to charge her energy herself using her hold skill. She doesn't even need to be in battle for it either. You can use her hold skill and charge her burst at any time, which admittedly resulted in a lot of this. Additionally, once you unlock her first ascension, if you tap her skill in battle, entering her alternate state, and trigger a cryo-related elemental reaction, you create void rifts that you can pick up the next time you hold skill, or tap skill burst, to charge her burst faster. You can also pick them up if you charge attack while in her skill state, but, well, I didn't realize that until after I finished this recording, so you won't see me do that at all. Oops. Listen, I said Skirk is a perfect solo character, not that I'm the perfect person to utilize that, but if you've watched any of my other videos, well, you already know that. Her alternate state also allows for faster movement speed. If you hold the skill, it acts similar to Mizuki's skill where you can just control the direction, but it doesn't consume stamina. But if you tap the skill, you can consume stamina to go faster. In this state, while sprinting, or, well, floating, I guess, she also can move over water. Just be careful of any rocks or uneven land. She gets stuck very easily. Like, incredibly easily. I suppose nobody's perfect. Not even Skirk. Cryo as an element is also a close third to Anemo in terms of usefulness in early game. While there's not really any cryo-based monuments or anything that are necessary to move forward in the Archon quest, like with Pyro and Anemo, there is an unholy amount of Hydro enemies, something we know all too well from my several Hydro character runs. Yes, I found immense joy in freezing the Hydro Abyss mages. Also, this is just my personal opinion, but Skirk has one of my absolute favorite character designs. You can definitely see that Genshin has improved a lot in their character models since, well, 1.0, and Skirk to me is an absolute reflection of that. Her colors are beautiful, and frankly, I don't see her outfit as being overly fanservice-y. It doesn't feel like skin for the sake of showing skin. It feels tasteful? Almost like gym clothes where it's meant to be efficient for movement. I don't know how to describe it, but I definitely adore her design. I mean, look at her arms and legs. They literally sparkle. It's so cool. Anyways, like I mentioned, nobody is perfect. Not even Skirk. While Skirk is amazing by herself, her kit is made specifically for being on teams with exclusively Cryo and Hydro characters. Her first Ascension passive prefers when other party members trigger Cryo-related reactions, since she herself can only make 3 Void Rifts on the field at any one time. Additionally, her 4th Ascension passive is only when other team members hit opponents, meaning it's completely useless to us in this challenge. Not to mention, her materials, well, are split between Fontaine and Natlan. Her boss is in northern Natlan, her flowers are in the volcano region in southern Natlan, and then her enemy drops, for whatever reason, are in Fontaine. I guess Pitbull has some competition. Probably the most notable con I came across in this challenge is that Skirk's skill infuses Cryo, and if you watched my struggles in Arlecchino only when the Bond of Life infuses Pyro, it's essentially that. This means when fighting enemies like Cryo Slimes or Cryo Abyss Mages, I can't use her skill at all, which is where at least 95% of her damage comes from. This first becomes an issue when one of the first Adventurer Handbook missions is defeating a Cryo Abyss Mage. That definitely took a while. I suppose it wouldn't be a Ren challenge if I didn't struggle against at least one type of Abyss Mage. Obviously, this being one of the most notable cons is really a nothing burger, but considering it was like the only real struggle I came across in this challenge, I had to mention it. Also, I know other challenges like this have rules against using healing food, but not this one. After working on the adventure handbook, we reach AR10 in what honestly felt like record time, so we return to Mondstadt and start Act 2. We go and beat up the Eye of the Storm for Venti, witness the knights being terrible at their job of guarding one of the most prized possessions of Mondstadt, and then I waste my time by going over to fight the original local legend, completely forgetting that I need to go to the Fatui hideout first. I don't know why my brain just skipped that and immediately thought I had to go collect the tears, but, well, at least we know Skirk won't have a problem coming back to fight this again. The Fatui agent was also nothing to write home about. Honestly, the worst part about all of these fights was not having her first ascension passive to do more damage. It wasn't really that noticeable though. Also, look how pretty she is. Anyways, we go back to the Ruin Guard again, and luckily, if you beat it before this part of the quest, it doesn't make you wait until the next day for it to respawn. It just shows up again, so we were able to take care of it a second time, dodge the Cryo Abyss Mage and collecting the second tier, and head to the domain for the third tier. I'm sorry. His name is what? Well, that's interesting. Honestly, look at the difference in model designs. I mean, to be fair, Skirk isn't from Teyvat, so it makes sense that she also looks different, but man, the improvements Genshin has done to models over the years, I just hope we get skins that can reflect that improvement, especially for older characters. Anyways, with the 3 tiers collected, we head to Star Snatch Cliff and are accompanied by a lightning storm.
What a view! Lovely for a fated reunion, isn't it?
Is it? With Act 2 completed, we've got some more grinding to do before we hit AR18, but we also unlock daily commissions, meaning it's time to go feed Timmy's ducks. Among other things. Honestly, one of the common occurrences in this challenge run was surprising myself with one-shotting groups of enemies like these. Also, it introduced me to another thing I love with Skirk. Her cryo attacks will go around shields. After so many challenges of the shields somehow blocking attacks even from behind, this felt like retribution. After finishing the daily commissions, we still have quite a ways to go until AR18, so we tag along with the adventurer to Wangshu Inn and make our way to Liyue Harbor, which actually brings us up to AR15, meaning it's time for our first ascension. Having done her trial, we can thankfully avoid walking to Natlan. Well, for now at least. We also level up her weapon for the only time in this challenge, since Harbinger of Dawn needs materials from the domain I can't access without Animo. That said, well, it's not really that noticeable of a problem. Returning to Mondstadt, we grind the Adventurer's Handbook some more before going and finally starting Kaya's Story Quest. Skirk officially becomes the first character so far to complete Kaya's Story Quest the way intended. Just good old cryo character doing cryo things. As for the fight with the Ruin Guard at the end, well...
What an interesting suggestion.
Anyways, after finishing Kaya's story quest, it's time to go start Amber's, since not starting it prevents us from finishing Act 3. That said, after one-shotting the treasure hoarders, mostly, we reach AR18, meaning we can shelf Amber's domain until later. Back in Mondstadt, we start Act 3 by having a very enjoyable time beating up the Hydro Abyss Mage without needing to bully it over to the flowers for once. Unfortunately, her burst decides to choose now to honor the shield, making our burst completely useless. Well, at least it broke down most of the shield. Heading inside Storm Terror's lair, it's time to break the 3 seals. In most of these challenges, I do my best to avoid fighting enemies unless absolutely necessary, because all it does is use more time, but with Skirk, no hilly trail is safe. I feel like if there was ever a character to do a speedrun solo challenge with, it would probably be Skirk, just with how fast she can handle enemies. It's kind of insanity. I guess to be expected, though. With the 3 seals broken, we head back into the tower to fight Storm Terror. Usually in these challenges for the final boss fights, I use this time to yap so everyone can watch the fight in full. However, for Skirk, well, let's just say there's not that much I can talk about in such a short length of time. I will say, though, that after this video in Gaming, I will be focusing on finishing challenges, since, like I touched on with Wanderer, I did end up getting my Farina and Mizuki accounts freed from Hoyo jail. I'm going to try and get Arlecchino done, and then do the video schedule of Challenge A Part 1, Challenge B Part 2, Archons Only, Challenge C Part 1, Challenge A Part 2, like I mentioned in my last video. That obviously might change if I have a character I'm particularly passionate about getting a challenge out for, like I was with Skirk. With Dvalin defeated so quickly it puts the Abyss Order to shame, as they should be, we return to the city, help clean up, and finish Act 3. In a quality of life update that probably only I notice, they no longer tell you about hitting AR32 to unlock TCG immediately after completing Mondstadt, and instead only mention needing to reach AR23 to start Liyue. Why they opted to change that, of all the things in early game when there's definitely some more pressing issues? I'll never know. Regardless, it's now time to work up to AR23. After another day of daily commissions, this time with an unfortunate enemy and a task I can't even accomplish, we reach AR20, unlocking the Spiral Abyss. While I primarily did this for the handbook task, I will never say no to Primo Gems, especially when her weapon is still up for grabs. With relatively minimal effort, we clear floors 1 and 2, satisfying the task before heading and finding a Ruin Hunter. These guys are usually pretty tough, especially for anyone except for bow users, so I kind of expect it'll take some effort to well, never mind. In between working on the handbook to grind experience, I resigned myself to my fate of finishing Amber's story quest. Skirk wasn't really able to do this herself because she wasn't doing very well reaching the platform enemies. She reached 1, so I guess she probably could, but I didn't want to spend 3 to 5 business days on this one section of the quest. We have a trial Amber, so may as well use her, right? Skirk had no issues on the other parts of this quest though, including but not limited to one-shotting the hilly trails, reaching the hilly trail on this platform, and the electro things for that matter, and of course the final battle. As I mentioned earlier, Amber's story quest is required to complete for the Archon quest, so whether we mark this as an official can't do or me just being lazy, well, you can decide that. With Amber's story quest complete, it's time to head to Wolvendom for Razor's story quest. Well, at least I don't have to spend 15 minutes fighting a Hydro Slime again. Similar to Amber's story quest, Razor's quest is required in order to progress and we will be reunited. Unfortunately, that means we have to face Andreas, a cryo enemy. I preemptively throw Prototype Rancor on Skirk because she's gonna need this physical damage boost, and head in. Luckily though, Skirk's raw power makes up for the inability to use her skill. Shout out Sertology, I guess. She still beats him faster than Farina or Mizuki did, though to be fair, she is a main DPS, so I would hope she could beat him faster than the primary support characters. With Razor's story quest completed, I decided to go start Diluc's story quest, until, well, I realized I didn't want to. I did, however, remember Skirk might be the first character in this challenge who could complete Dragonspine. You would think I would want nothing to do with Dragonspine after recently 100%ing it for Archons only, but well, maybe that warmed me up to it, or maybe it's a type of Stockholm Syndrome, who knows. Anyways, I was very quickly reminded that for every cryo monument in Dragonspine that Skirk can activate, there is a cryo enemy that she, well, has more issues with. I opt for a tactical avoidance of the Cryo Lodge trail, unlocking the Frostbearing tree, and hitting AR-22. However, at this point, I remembered I need to go to Jueyun Karst during Liyue Act 1, and after doing all of that and unlocking a few extra teleport waypoints, I hit AR-23, meaning it's time to start the Liyue Archon quest. We watch Rex Lapis die, get yelled at by the game for opening a chest during my escape, not my fault they put it in our path, before the true fated reunion of Teyvat.
Hey girlie, hold still.
Skirk and her student. Child directs us to go find the Adepti, so our work from earlier pays off. Starting with Mooncarver, we fight a few rounds of Millilith, though I don't really think his booster helps Skirk at all since she doesn't use energy. Regardless, something also enjoyable with Skirk is the fact her attacks have a pretty wide AoE, meaning even if we gained nothing from Mooncarver's assistance, we still had no issues. We're sent to find the other two Adepti, and Zhao, and so first we go seek out Mountain Shaper. Finally, I have a sword character so I can easily break the amber and move on. I'll just go where the brother usually is, and oh, well, you aren't the brother. That's fine. I'll just go over to this one and, well, that's new. All right, third time's the charm, right? Why are there so many of them? Oh, sure. Figures you're up here now, after I already broke all the amber down where you usually are. Great.
Someone has definitely cooked here.
Up next is Cloud Retainer, and I don't know how, but this might be one of the only things that I'm kind of good at when it comes to skips. Skirk does have the advantage of being slightly taller than the short female model, so I guess there's that. Finally, we head to meet Zhao. The Ruin Hunter, one about the same as last time. Honestly, having no struggles with Skirk in any of these fights so far genuinely feels like a reward for all the struggle challenges. After meeting with Zhao, we return to Update Child and finish Act 1. This time, to level up, we go to our old reliable, the Liyue weapons domain. Not to be dramatic, but I want to kiss whoever at Hoyoverse decided to suggest exchanging fragile resin for 3 times the rewards. It makes grinding for solo challenges so much easier. We get a ton of fragile resin in the early game, and I'm obviously not going to be repeatedly farming artifact domains on these challenge accounts, so they end up just being used to level up regardless. So being able to get 3 times the experience for one run, I could cry. Admittedly, I didn't realize at first because I saw the cracked resin and my brain thought it was the resin we get from the teapot, which obviously I don't have. So I used up my regular resin per usual and then opted to clear the one-off domains that were already unlocked in Mondstadt and Liyue. I also went back to Dragonspine to solve some of the cryo puzzles, and this fight was probably the toughest so far, mostly because I was competing against the sheer cold. We did pull it off though, and I'm pretty sure Skirk is the only character I've played with so far that hasn't died even once. Back at Old Reliable, and finally realizing I can use my fragile resin, we quickly reach AR-25, and I realize I need to go find Skirk's boss in Natlan to ascend her. The good news is Genshin added automatically unlocked teleport waypoints throughout Natlan, so at least I'm not walking all the way there from the desert. We meet the little guy, and I fittingly name him Ajax. Oh, Ajax 2. What is that? So, I'll be honest, I've never fought this boss before. I also only did Acts 1 and 2 of Natlan on my main account, and I haven't really done, well, any exploring of any areas in Natlan that were introduced after the initial map, including fighting whatever this is. Luckily, it doesn't seem all that tough, so I guess it shouldn't be a rough Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I guess RIP to that record of not dying. On my second attempt, I managed to dodge the explosion. I know you can just fight it to stun it, but that wasn't really going very well for me since Skirk obviously doesn't have a Night Soul Blessing state. Oh, sure, that figures. I genuinely don't know how I dodged it that one time because it took me 3 times to replicate it after. Finally though, we beat it a second time, get the materials, and can move on to the volcano area to collect her flowers. Unfortunately, it is on the complete other side of Natlan. That figures. After some flower hunting and buying the Fontaine enemy drops, we ascend Skirk and return to Liyue to start Act 2. If you've watched my other videos, you know I'm not really a fan of Liyue Act 2, so the TLDR is that Amber helped us in lighting up the pot to boil the rocks, we struggled against the cryo slimes in Madame Ping's teapot, and then we went to the ballista for Chi-Chi to fight the treasure hoarders. Speaking of Chi-Chi, it's so interesting to me to put these two side by side. They have the same general color scheme of a light purple, but I think it really puts into perspective the growth Genshin has had with character models. Just from a strictly artistic standpoint, you can see that the shadowing and outer lines on Chi-Chi are dark and have a lot more contrast compared to Skirk. Skirk is a little bit more gentle on the eyes, and I don't know. I prefer that. Regardless, we have dinner with Zhongli and wrap up Act 2, meaning it's time to head to the Ascension Domain with Skirk. So far, the fastest clear time ranking is Arlecchino at number 1 with 26 seconds, and Mulaney at number 2 with 30 seconds. How'd Skirk do? 23 seconds! A whole 3 seconds faster than Arlecchino, and taking the crown for fastest Ascension Domain clear so far. Will anyone top that? Honestly, who knows? After a few days of daily commissions, finishing Diluc's story quest, and more of the one-time domains in Mondstadt, and of course many more runs of the weapons domain, we hit AR-28, so we return to Liyue to start Act 3. Skirk being so incredible and OP, she's able to activate the wind mechanism without help. Don't look at that. We return to the ballista to fight the Millilith, and I'm reminded that I need to be more careful to not let them fly off the side. Anyways, we don't give him a chance to fall off the side again, and after taking out the rest of the officers, we meet the OG-voiced Keqing for probably the last time. We collect the ingredients for Paimon's, dream snack, and head up to meet Ningguang. At Ningguang's super subtle suggestion, we go and investigate the Fatui activities. Usually, I do my best to avoid fighting these Fatui agents, but this time though, we go full assassin mode, isolating each soldier before taking them out. Poetic. Truly. Unfortunately, the next section is something that I completely dreaded. The literal only time I've had a good time with this fight was with Arlecchino. However, this is the first time fighting with a cryo character, so I'm not exactly thrilled.
It's time to sing whenever you're ready.
If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been married a long time ago.
Where do we come from, and where are we going?
Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
I guess they don't like songs from another planet. This fight was probably one of the tougher battles I had throughout this challenge. Admittedly, it only took me like 2.5 minutes, but considering it was just some whopper flowers and not, you know, a boss fight, those 2 minutes felt like 20. That said, our next fight makes up for it. It's time for a reunion battle between Skirk and Child. How'd it go?
So very few ever get the chance to square.
You wanna see me do it again?
Honestly, it would have taken less time if Child didn't keep putting his shield up, though admittedly that was probably a smart choice on his part. The final round took longer for the sole purpose that I was trying to charge her burst to see if it could one-shot him in this form too. Unfortunately, it took a little more than that, but really not much more. Since I obviously didn't have enough time to yap during Deval and her Child, we're going to do it now, because, well, this fight forces you to use the whole 6.5 minutes. I must share with you all my current addiction, one that has admittedly put my ability to hyperfixate to the test. Now, as a preface, I don't think I've liked all that many things in a normal way. For as long as I can remember, I have been an all or nothing kind of person when it comes to things I enjoy. The laundry list of my hyperfixations over the years could take up an entire video on its own, maybe when I 100% Dragonspine or Liyue for Archons only. But today's focus is my newest one. Unless you live under a rock, you've probably heard of it, since it's pretty popular online, and I admittedly also heard about it from social media. Don't worry, it's not Labubu's, but it is K-pop Demon Hunters. Now, my typical cycle with hyperfixations tends to be consume the media, say the anime, movie, whatever, then move on to the other forms of the media. Typically with anime, that means going and reading the entire manga or all the translated light novels. At that point, I like to peruse the internet for merchandise to browse, which also means my living space is basically just shrines to my hyperfixations over the years. K-pop Demon Hunters, though, it's just the movie and the accompanying soundtrack. There is no content that it's based on, no sequel or 24-episode series, just a 90-minute movie. With nothing anything else from my unstable brain to latch onto, I have just instead latched onto what little content there is, ad nauseum. I have lost count of how many times I've watched the movie, but it's not nearly as many times as I've listened to the soundtrack, specifically Your Idol. I don't know if it's just because it's an insanely good song, or if my brain is just broken beyond help, but that song has firmly parked itself in my skull, and on my Spotify Wrapped come December. I've also been feeding the insatiable fixation with every piece of fan art I can find. Luckily, the Twitter algorithm quickly realized that all I wanted to see was Huntrix and Saja Boy's content, and oh, did it deliver. Nobody asked, but my favorite Saja Boy is Baby Saja, and Zoe is my favorite Huntrix member. I won't spoil anything if you haven't seen the movie, but I, for one, absolutely need a sequel. On that note, if you follow me on Twitter, well, I hope you like fan art, and if you don't, I'm sorry. We finish Act 3, marking the end of Liyue. To celebrate, we do a couple single pulls in the weapons banner. Well, at least it was early. With the completion of Liyue, we're given the opportunity to quick start to do Skirk's story quest early, with the reward being her ascension materials through level 60. Considering I respectfully want nothing to do with going and fighting that boss again for the foreseeable future, I opt to do that. Since her story quest was only recently released, I'll be going into depth with it, but I'll leave a timestamp to skip if you want to avoid spoilers. A heads up though, this is actually the longest character quest to date, with nearly a 3-hour runtime. I'll try to summarize without missing too much. This is also the first introduction to Paimon's new voice actor, and I don't hate it, but being used to the same Paimon voice for 4 years and suddenly hearing a different voice is definitely jarring. I'll get used to it eventually, probably after the voice is fully replaced and I start hearing it during these solo runs. We start Skirk's story quest by being hit with a wave of, smoky fog? Evil harmony energy? Regardless, Paimon suggests we go visit Baizhu to get checked out, and luckily we're close by. We head to the newly introduced, at least it's new to me, back room, where Paimon explains to Baizhu that the traveler has been overly exhausted and seems sleep deprived no matter how much sleep she gets. Honestly, relatable. Baizhu gives us an exam and finds nothing physically wrong. Usually that would be a good thing, but in this case it means our health issue is more complicated because it can't be easily identified. I know how that feels. For now, Baizhu suggests resting there for a while, hoping that whatever we're feeling may show some clues in the meantime. While asleep, we experience a dream, or, well, nightmare sequence. While we try to figure out what's going on or where we even are, something that resembles the horn from the narwhal shows up to stab us in the back. Cool. Waking up, we have Paimon check us for any, stab wounds, and as it turns out, we did in fact dream the whole thing. So Paimon suggests we go eat at Wanmin restaurant to cheer up, though I think it's primarily Paimon who gets cheered up by food. While we explain to Paimon the dream we had, Skirk sits down next to us.
Your child's master! Orc?
Close enough. Despite the fact that we're quick starting after Liyue on this account, they don't cut out the section of the quest discussing meeting Skirk and Fontaine, or the fact we end up friendly with Child. Though, I imagine the amount of people opting to quick start because they haven't finished Fontaine is slim. Ordering a glass of wine from Chef Mao, Skirk asks us for a further explanation of our dream, and shares that she thinks a part of our soul has been damaged, showing signs of abyssal corrosion. After taking a while to decide if we want her help, Skirk starts to leave. And I imagine that this is another point we'll probably get a voice line added from the twins once the VAs are able to catch up. We accept her help and she tells us to meet her in Guili Plains when we finish eating. Before we leave, we go to pay for the wine, but Chef Mao mentions that we never ordered a drink and that there was only 2 of us at the table. However, he eventually agrees to take the mora for the wine, noting that he did at least open a bottle, but leaving us more confused than before. In Guili Plains, we come across some rift hounds. Like I said in Wanderer Only, they weren't introduced until Inazuma, but in exchange, Genshin decided to put these literally everywhere as punishment. At least it feels like punishment. Once we defeat the rift hounds, Skirk shows up, explaining that they were collecting god remains, being interrupted by Paimon poking her to confirm she's real. Skirk explains that she has no desire to establish a connection with this world, and anyone who notices her usually has their memories erased. Us being, you know, an obvious exception. Getting back on topic, Skirk shares she believes a god-level entity is stealing sources of power from all over Teyvat, including the Stella Fortuna. I think one of my favorite things with Genshin is how nearly everything within the game has an in-game lore explanation, Stella Fortuna being one of them. It's not just something random for the sake of the gacha, you know? Regardless, Skirk believes this entity might be what's responsible for stealing pieces of the Traveler's soul. In exchange for us helping her find out the identity of the entity, she'll help us get the soul piece back. We agree, and Skirk brings us to the Abyss so we can formulate a plan. Time flows significantly slower in the Abyss, so by slowing down time, we can figure out the details without risking further soul erosion. or, being attacked. After we shut down the idea of harnessing abyssal power, at least for now, Skirk suggests dream mirroring when we sleep so she can investigate for us, and if needed, guide us through the scene. She's admittedly not entirely sure if it'll work, and wants to make sure we do some special training first to be on the safe side. The entirety of the special training was with the Traveler, and while we were finally given a better sword than the dull blade, I honestly hated this. In my own defense, I was doing this while distracted because Midya was over, so I was chatting with her and half paying attention. I did not anticipate actual training. I will be, in fact, skipping all of the training sessions in this recap. Sorry. After 5 rounds of blade work training, and some random flashbacks of other sword characters, Skirk informs us that we've been training for several days without stopping. And yeah, it honestly felt like it. We go to the base camp to rest, but instead of our normal nightmare thing, we realize we're seeing Skirk's dream world. We follow this not Sealy around and witness several of Skirk's memories. The first is Skirk with her parents, with her mother scolding her for skipping classes while her dad asks to hear about the adventures that Skirk skipped her classes for. The next memory we witness is Skirk wondering to herself about what lies beyond the stars, frustrated about being a kid and wanting to hurry up and grow up so she can go explore. But for now, she opts to return home for dinner. She returns to her village to find it on fire, with soldiers aimlessly killing the villagers.
I told you we shouldn't have trusted these outsiders!
I wonder how much of this also reflects the cataclysm in Conria. We find out from the conversation between soldiers that they view the villagers as less than humans, specifically savages and beasts, and they're working to eliminate the threat they pose from, existing. Skirk, meanwhile, makes her way to her parents, who are thankful she's alive, but encourage her to escape. Skirk is understandably more concerned with the fact that her parents are actively bleeding, but when the soldiers close in on the home, her parents tell her she needs to survive, pushing for her to run. We wake up seeing Skirk singing the same song we heard her father strumming in the memory before he died. Once Skirk finally notices us, she notes that she found a couple of clues while we slept, but more importantly, it's time for round 2 of our training, a focus on elemental energy. Skirk explains that because she doesn't gain her powers from Tevat's natural energy, being elemental energy, it's not really her area of expertise. She instead explains that she uses abyssal power, and shares how her master, Sertology, was one of the 5 sinners that stole the all-encompassing power of the abyss. When we inquire about why her power is so similar to Cryo, she explains that she disguises her power to appear like Cryo to fit in better, which I guess is one way to explain her not having a vision. She offers to teach it to us, but we decline, mentioning our ability is to purify abyssal power. She offhandedly makes a remark questioning if purification is really what we're doing, which, yeah, is a question I've had too, before returning the focus to our training. Like last time, I'm skipping it. After several more days of non-stop training, Skirk sends us to rest again, and we return to Skirk's memories, reuniting with the little not Sealy. While we try to talk to it, it just leads us to more memories. This time we witness Skirk's memories of training with Sertology. In the first memory, we see Sertology sharing the secret to power with Skirk. He believes the secret to power is fear. Fear of losing those you love, watching your home burn, loneliness, death, all of those fears and more force humanity to adapt and overcome. He tells Skirk that her fear and experiences are now a part of her, calling on her to evolve. That's heavy stuff for a newly orphaned child. Not much for mincing words, I guess. In the next memory, Skirk is struggling to complete her training, saying she feels like her wrist will break if she continues. Sertology, meanwhile, tells her that she should keep practicing until it breaks, wanting to... well, actually, let's have him say it.
I want to hear the cracking and splintering of bone.
Well, I suppose nobody accused Genshin of being a happy kids game. Well, except maybe the FTC. Regardless, her next memory is, well, worse. This time with Skirk sounding near death, while Sertology explains that every time she's near death, she gets stronger, but that she still has a lot to learn. Great.
Get up, Skirk. Wipe the blood off your face. Cut away the rotten parts of your flesh. And mend what is broken. Then take up your sword.
Well, that's messed up. Waking up, Paimon informs us Skirk's waiting for us so we can finish the final section of training, so we head over to find her. The final phase of our training is reaction under pressure, something I personally was very concerned with when she said it. I admittedly struggled my way through the first 2 training rounds, so I'm not exactly eager for the 3rd round with added pressure. Skirk, after telling us to block an attack of hers, suddenly brings up our twin, causing us to pause and allowing her an opening. When Paimon calls foul on that, Skirk makes an honestly valid point.
You can denounce their deplorable methods all you want, but only if you live to tell the tale. The dead don't get to complain.
I mean, she's not wrong. After our final round of training, Skirk sends us to rest again, returning us to her memories. This time, though, the little not Seelie is nowhere to be found. In the first memory, we hear two of Sertologi's disciples discussing Skirk's abilities. Despite her getting badly injured, she immediately returned to practicing her sword work. One of the disciples says Skirk is becoming more like Sertologi by the day, and the two wonder if they'll ever reach that level. In the next memory, we get a better picture of the mental anguish Skirk experienced while training, haunted by those she lost, feeling guilt for being the sole survivor of her people, even the innocent childhood version of herself, all these emotions that she shoved away to become stronger. In the final memory, we approach a tea table and hear a very familiar voice, Alice. There is literally no one in this game that I am more hyped to learn about than Alice. Alice tells Skirk that she needs a new identity, suggesting she tell people she's from beneath the earth as opposed to beyond the stars. Skirk agrees, not wanting to stir the pot in this world. Alice then gives Skirk a piece of advice.
Ignore her existence for too long, and there will come a day when you can no longer hear her voice.
We wake up, this time seeing and smelling a barbecue feast prepared by Paimon and Skirk. After eating, Paimon decides to go to sleep, leaving us to chat with Skirk. Skirk informs us that we've completed our training and that she's located the entity who's been stealing god remains, so we can go to retrieve the missing part of our soul. She also shares that when she trained Child, she allowed him to ask her 3 questions, and since we may never meet again, she'll give us the same opportunity. Our first question is a simple one. Are you really from Teyvat? We follow up by admitting we saw her memories while we were dream mirroring, and witnessed Skirk have an actual human reaction for the first and probably only time. Skirk shares she made active efforts to avoid that exact possibility, but returning to her stone-cold composure, brushes it off and just asks that we keep it a secret. She confirms that she's not from Teyvat, but she's not a descender like we are. She specifies that the descenders specifically influence the fate of the world, but as for her, Sertologi opened the border between worlds and sent her to Teyvat. I wonder, since our twin isn't considered a descender, does that mean they can't influence the fate of this world, regardless of their attempts to with the Loom of Fate? Putting that aside, our second question for Skirk is asking what her goal is in coming to Teyvat. She answers simply, to grow stronger and bridge the gap of power between her and Sertologi. To do that, she needs to follow in his footsteps here in Teyvat. She asks for our last question, and suddenly we think of Child, having a flashback to a discussion we must have had with him in regards to Skirk. I kid you not, I have never been so excited to hear a voiced character. The absolute thrill I felt confirming that Griffin Burns reprised his role as Child, iconic. We give Child our last question, asking Skirk if she will let him see her since he's looking for her. She explains that once he has enough strength of his own, then she'll meet him again, hoping that it can motivate him to keep growing. Before we can question her on it, or the memories we witnessed and why she's obviously suppressing her emotions, she tells us to wake up Paimon, and to keep everything a secret, even from her. Interesting. You wanna know something else interesting? We're only halfway through this quest. Yeah. Moving along, we return to the surface world, albeit briefly. The next part of our quest? In the above ground of the chasm. And guess what part of the map I haven't unlocked yet?
Wait, this is near the chasm, right?
I'll tell you what, Sherlock Holmes. You are unbelievable.
We arrive in the upper levels of the chasm, and Skirk opens up a rift to help us return to the place from our dream. We're given exclusively a trial Skirk and a trial, us. How's the trial Skirk compared to our Skirk? Well, anyways, within the domain we fight several rounds of Hilly-Churls as well as a few Abyss Mages, while also dodging more of the spikes like we did in our training. Since we're exclusively using trial characters here, I'm just going to skip it. Reaching the end of the domain, Skirk asks if we can sense the missing part of our soul, since it should be close by. We can tell it's nearby, but nothing more specific than that. The spikes return, this time primarily targeting Skirk. We get an absolutely insane cutscene which ends with Skirk getting pierced in the shoulder with a spike. However, we find out the spike contains the fragment of our soul we were looking for, and she let it break through her defenses on purpose in order to return the fragment to us. After, she explains that she believes the entity targeted us because of our ability to quote-unquote purify abyssal powers. This ability allowed it to steal Skirk's power. We're given a new iconic Genshin line.
I'll cope.
And then she turns her attention to the entity, who's been apparently just chilling in the shadows this whole time. Skirk confirms that the spikes are the power of the all-devouring narwhal, before mentioning the entity must know her master the fowl. This nickname evokes a reaction, revealing its location and also revealing the entity can't really control its power. Skirk lets us decide our course of action. Noting the fact that Skirk's injured, we decide to retreat for now. We lose our trial Skirk, being left with only trial Traveler. We have to dodge falling spikes and enemies, but I opt to just not fight anything. At least not with the Hydro Traveler of all things. Escaping the domain, we convince Skirk to let us continue to help her until she gets her power back, and bring her to Boo Boo's pharmacy, since we have the back room to freely rest and recover without anyone interrupting. It's the perfect place for someone who actively avoids human interaction.
Ah! You heard all that?
A sonorous voice like yours is hard to miss. I wouldn't be surprised if the sound of it traveled to the nearest mountaintop.
Then, did you by chance happen to hear Paimon's little, joke earlier?
You mean when you called me Frosty the Lavender Melon?
Guess that answers that. Skirk, claiming that she doesn't get tired and doesn't need rest, tells us to sleep while she practices her sword work. Mentally, I guess, because she just sat at the table the whole time. We wake up to her having a nightmare, I think, or at least reliving some of the memories we witnessed towards the end of our training, the people from her past haunting her. We put some tea out for her and return to bed. The next morning, Skirk says she's recovered around 60 to 70% of her strength, something Paimon thinks is impressive, but Skirk says is slower than usual. She decides the best thing to do is meditate for 2 days, and we opt to watch over her while she does. After 2 days, she still hasn't woken up, so Paimon decides to go get breakfast so Skirk can have something when she wakes up. After Paimon leaves, suddenly the little not Seelie from earlier appears again, bringing us inside of Skirk's mind. For the first time, the little creature talks to us, sharing that it was able to bring us here because Skirk's injury weakened her power. It continues by sharing that the river is Skirk's strength, and that in most people it should be a single stream, but has been severed repeatedly due to Skirk trying to cut off her connections with her past. We realize it's probably because of Sertologi's teachings, but before we can consider it further, the little creature brings us further upstream. This time we see Skirk's memories through images instead of fuzzy scenes. In the first image, we see Skirk on the beach in Mondstadt where we start the game, standing in front of the drawing of the heavenly principles we drew for Paimon. The little creature says it's likely that Skirk, upon realizing there was another Intivat who came from beyond the stars, hesitated briefly but decided to still walk away from it. We realize she's never made a connection with the world by her own choice, connecting it back to how she won't go see Child. Skirk views herself as a trespasser in this world, and does her best to avoid impacting anything. Despite this belief, we hear a conversation between Sertologi and Skirk. Sertologi tells Skirk to make friends, embark on a journey, and make a new future from what's left of her past. However, he warns that when she does, well, actually, let's have him say it.
One day, I will take the life you worked so hard to rebuild and reduce it to ashes. Just like the fire that haunts your mind.
Well, that's messed up. Sertologi justifies it by saying he has given her the gift of eternal fear, to drive her to grow stronger than him and to defeat him no matter what. We realize this is why she works so hard to bridge the gap in power between herself and Sertologi, as well as why she tries to distance herself from Child. She doesn't want to be the same sort of teacher to him as Sertologi was to her.
I'll let you in on a little secret. The real Sertologi is terrifying. The scope of his power is impossible to understand until you experience it firsthand. It is absolute, the power to crush all things.
Well, that's ominous. I'm interested to know what he's doing now, though, and for that matter, learn about the other centers too. We continue onward, reaching a memory of Skirk while she's training with Sertologi. We find out that she did in fact end up breaking her wrist from training, and Skirk questions why Sertologi saved her. He shares that he desires a battle that forces him to use his full strength, but since even fate bends the knee to him, his words, he's just hoping that Skirk will perhaps surprise him. Despite Skirk not wanting to fight him, he selfishly continues to push for her to train until she can. Moving on, we reach a point in Skirk's life prior to her meeting Sertologi, and prior to the disaster in her homeland. Skirk was a happy and curious child, wishing to discover everything she could. One day, a merchant ship arrived, full of people claiming to be from a neighboring planet wanting to start trading. Skirk's people welcomed these traders, completely oblivious to the disaster ahead. After a few months, an army arrived and destroyed everything and everyone. If anyone plays Honkai Star Rail, it's very much giving Aventurine's origin story. After escaping from the fire and destruction, Skirk crossed paths with Sertologi. The little creature shares that the initial merchants discovered that the people of Skirk's planet had the ability to adapt to any environment or energy source, and decided that was too much of a threat to allow them to live. Having learned quite a bit about Skirk's history, we follow the creature and approach Skirk. We find out that the creature is her suppressed emotional self, all of her emotions and rejected pieces of her past, now residing in the little not Seelie. It's trying to convince her to accept it, but Skirk disagrees, believing that its existence makes her weak, so she locks it in here. What here is, well, don't ask me. I don't really know either. Despite Skirk continuing to dismiss her emotions and emotional self as weak, we point out that the fact the creature fought tooth and nail to find her proves her emotional self is actually strong. Finally, Skirk decides to accept her emotional self, embracing her past. After a phenomenal cinematic that I encourage everyone to go watch on Genshin's channel, we offer to help Skirk in her fight against Sertologi if the time ever comes. Not that she, well, reacts, but the offer's out there. We finally return to the actual world, and Paimon gives us some food to eat before we head back to the chasm to fight the strange entity. Don't worry, everyone, we're nearly done. Well, with this part anyways. Upon entering the Abyssal Rift, we come face to face with a Certology? Listen, I know we promised to fight against him alongside Skirk, but I didn't actually think it would happen this quickly. Luckily, it isn't actually Certology. The entity just changed forms, I guess. Skirk explains that to the creature, Certology represents ultimate power, so that's why it took this form. While we fight, what are my thoughts on the story quest? Honestly, it's about time. Let me explain. One of my least favorite aspects of character story quests has been how many of them have become help a random NPC. I'm very much impartial to the story quests that actually let us learn more about the character in question, and this is absolutely one of the best examples of that. Yes, this was a longer quest, but it felt appropriately paced, and I'd frankly rather a 3-hour voice story quest that introduces us to information and lore in a digestible fashion as opposed to either a non-voiced world quest or a 1-hour quest that dumps pounds of information on us at once. I already really liked Skirk even before the story quest, and this quest made me absolutely love her. It not only provided more lore to Teyvat as a whole, but really allowed us to get to know this specific character, something that character story quests should be. Genshin did a grand slam with this quest. 11 out of 10. Skirk overloads the enemy with her power, and it finally shows us its true form. It's just a guy. The man reveals himself as a friend and follower of Certology. Originally a noble of Conria, he acquired an incurable disease that resulted in everyone giving up on him. Despite that, he continued to train, eventually meeting Certology. Certology, the son of criminals, grew up the complete opposite, wandering the streets. Despite that, he refused to go down without a fight, and the two became friends, frequently sparring together. When he was 10, his illness was cured by Certology, who had stolen forbidden research materials. However, as both grew up, he felt like he fell behind Certology. After the cataclysm, Certology met with him, offering to cure his immortality, but also sharing he planned to leave Teyvat. He declined the immortality cure, so Certology suggested that, in the future, if he longs for a good fight before succumbing to the curse, he should seek out Certology's disciple. Both men are surprised that Certology would take on a disciple, but the visionary, Dainsleif's older brother, and the sinner we encounter in Kari Bear, said he was destined to find a disciple and bring her to Teyvat, and, quote, the stars shall bow in her honor. We also find out he was able to absorb all of this power by cutting off a part of the narwhal's flesh and sewing it into his own heart. Okay. Moving along, he asks Skirk to end his life. Instead, Skirk offers to destroy his consciousness, allowing him to restore his body and mind while removing the power, and giving him a chance to maybe wake up in time to see Skirk fight Certology one day. Finally, we leave the Abyssal Rift, with Skirk saying she needs to take some time to practice now that her emotions are no longer separated from her power. She also shares that the stars that died out have regained their light, so all's well that ends well. With that, we say goodbye to Skirk, and after nearly 3 hours and 9 pages of script, we finish her story quest. If you skipped the section with her story quest to avoid spoilers, welcome back. I won't discuss anything in her quest, so no worries. Just be careful in the comments in case anyone discusses it. Though, if you can avoid spoilers with this game, you probably already know that. I swear, spoiler avoiders are some of the strongest soldiers. Meanwhile, I got Season 3 of Squid Game spoiled from just opening Twitter on the day it came out. I guess it saves me the watch. Back to the general challenge, we head to Mondstadt to start the Dainsleif Quests. After getting blocked from starting the Dain quest by Minecraft, of all things, we finally reunite Dain and Skirk. Unfortunately, we don't have any information on Certology's whereabouts for him. Sorry to disappoint. Man, look at these two side by side. This is so iconic. Imagine showing this to players back in late 2020 or early 2021. For the first time, we finally have an elemental advantage in this domain. It only took an unholy amount of solo runs. Now, listen, in my own defense, I recorded this challenge immediately after recording Kokomi only. That challenge brought levels of torture I didn't even think was possible in a Genshin Impact challenge. So I will admit I very much enjoyed beating up the Abyss Heralds and the Hydro Abyss Mages. After clearing out the domain, we accompany Dainsleif to Wolvendom. The first round of enemies is led by a Pyro Abyss Mage, so we take them out with minimal effort. The second round of enemies, though, well, we don't have to fight these enemies, so call it a tactical retreat. I just really didn't want to fight another Cryo Abyss Mage. Can you blame me? Don't worry, I'll face my fair share later in the video. Our next stop is to Storm Terror's lair. This is another fight that was absolute nightmare fuel with Kokomi, and Mulanni, and Farina. Wow, I've done a lot of Hydro challenges. Regardless, I definitely enjoyed this fight. We wrap up the Dainsleif quest, so now it's time to head to Liyue to begin We Will Be Reunited so we can go to Inazuma. Knowing I have to fight a bunch of Abyss enemies in this quest, I wanted to preemptively make some healing food, mostly because Harbinger of Dawn needs your HP above 70% to be beneficial. But well, the oven at Zhangling's shop is occupied. That said, I do really love doing these challenge videos during this event though. I love seeing the random playable characters just chilling in the open world. After making plenty of Sweet Madame, I immediately realized I forgot to go and unlock any of the teleport waypoints around the quest locations for this. Well, that's gonna be fun. Up first, we make our way to the domain. I've all but given up on taking the time to collect the chests here because, well, honestly, it just takes extra time. I think I'll survive without the 5 Primo Gems. We run into my immortal enemy from Kokomi Only, and Skirk provides some much needed revenge for me. Unfortunately, at this point, I had yet to remember the enemies we faced further into the quest, so it was only a brief reprieve. Immediately after leaving the domain, we reach AR30, also finally giving us the TCG notice, and reuniting us with Dainsleif. So what did I mean by brief reprieve? Well, let me recreate it for you.
Wow, I haven't stubbed my toe in 5 months, I said with joys. I was then shot 57 times.
Yeah. Of the 6 Abyss Mages we faced in this section of the quest, 5 were Cryo. I guess congrats to Hoyo for having one quest section without a single Hydro enemy, but oh my god, literally why?
3 weeks later.
The first battle was fine. Sort of. But the second one, well, thankfully I had the knowledge that I could leave the area without causing the defeated enemies to respawn. Thank you, Kaniche. And before anyone says, oh, but Ren, why didn't you let the hilly trails light up the grass? I tried. It wasn't working to melt the mages. It was only lighting me on fire. So I opted to take the L.
Many months later.
The third battle at least had a Pyro Abyss Mage, but like the Hilly Trail, it was lighting Skirk on fire more than anything else, so I just isolated the Cryo Mage before recreating what I imagined to be the Genshin equivalent to the Titanic versus the iceberg. At least that's how it felt.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting, and they had to hire a new one.
After spending longer in this one section of the quest than I did in any of the boss fights so far, we can finally go back to Wolvendom. Never did I think I would be excited to fight an Abyss Herald. Now, on that topic, I would like you all to take a guess on how long this fight took me with Kokomi. I know I've discussed that video quite a few times in this challenge, and don't worry, the video will probably come out before the end of July, but oh man, I have never suffered for content like I suffered for that video, and you all know how much I spent on Archons only. That said, it was fitting to film this challenge right after because being able to return all the struggle right back to the Abyss Herald was everything I could have hoped for and more, even if it was at the expense of a new struggle with the Cryo Abyss Mages. Anyways, after fighting the Abyss Herald and saving Andreas, we return to Stormterror's lair, find the Eye of the First Field Tiller, and then go right back to the domain to fight the Abyss Herald again. Unfortunately, while I would have liked to one-shot it again this time, Skirk's targeting prioritized the Abyss Mages, which is understandable after all the problems I've experienced thanks to them, but in this fight you don't actually have to even acknowledge them, at least not anymore, so it was just a matter of having to focus her attention on the Abyss Herald. Before long though, she gets the right idea, triggering the cutscene reuniting with our twin, and finishing we will be reunited. Finally, it's time to begin Inazuma. Well, after I get a cool shot of Skirk with a defiled statue. We start the prologue by returning to Liyue Harbor to find some information about getting to Inazuma. Embarrassment to Liyue. Zhao? Wow, I didn't think you felt that way. We have to head to Guyan Stone Forest, so of course now's the perfect time to show off Skirk's ability to float over water. Wait, what? Okay. Well, I guess Veruna's crown for walking on water is still safe. For now. Anyways, after flying over to Guyan Stone Forest and taking our frustrations out on this Fatui agent, we board the Alcor and meet with Beidou and Kazuha. In order to get passage to Inazuma, we sign up for Beidou's fighting tournament, and Lumion gets to take advantage of the training from Skirk's story quest with the base attack increase of 7. Don't really think it made the difference, but hey, a bonus is a bonus, I guess. After the first 2 rounds, Kazuha wishes to see our elemental abilities and brings us to fight some slimes. Unfortunately, one of the slimes is a cryo slime, meaning no elemental ability watching here. Also, Kazuha literally isn't even watching. Whatever, I guess. We return to the fighting arena, find out the Masterless Vision has been stolen, and accompany Kazuha to get it back.
Treasure hoarders, just as I expected. In which case, please stand back.
I'm fine, really. Wait, what? This is only the second time I've seen a double rainbow appear in this game. That's crazy. Unfortunately, by the time we finished the dialogue, it was gone. Bummer. After defeating Faye the Flyer, we return to the arena with Kazuha and complete the prologue. Starting Act 1, we spend half an hour solving tax fraud on Rito, before finally meeting with Chisato to get our ticket off the island. Here's another sneak preview of Kokomi Only. I had to do this with her at level 20. Anyone who says, oh, Skirk only isn't a challenge, let me have my moment after that. Luckily, with Skirk we enjoy a smooth passage from Rito to Narukami Island, so our next stop is the tea house to meet with Toma. Is the wall interesting or something? We reunite with Toma, and after rejecting Ayaka's request for our help, we make it up to her by, well, essentially running some errands. Sort of. Another half hour of solving problems in Inazuma later, with one singular battle where Skirk's burst animation took longer than the fight itself, Ayaka wore us down and we agreed to help her end the Vision Hunt decree. So what now? Well, it's time to go break Master Matsukasu out of prison, and while we do that, boy do I have a story to share. In another case of Ren can never film a video without some act of God in the way, where I live pretty much gets most kinds of weather. That's to say that not much can really shake me when it comes to the weather, and the trees around me can take a beating. While I was trying to record this voiceover voiceover, I was first interrupted by one of my cats screaming bloody murder because I wasn't giving her attention at that moment. That's fine, I'll record it when she naps later. Well, later comes around. So I get my tea brewed and I get ready to sit down and record. Suddenly, I hear the loudest wind I have literally ever heard. I look outside and you would think a monsoon had spawned out of thin air. My cats are terrified. Both ended up running to hide under furniture because it's so loud. Then, of course, the power starts flickering. I don't lose power very often, but when I do, it's either out for 40 seconds or 4 hours. No in between. But when the rest of the area is losing power, mine will be flickering a ton. So despite having a surge protector, I opt to do the smart thing for once and turn off my PC and just ride out the storm. It was hailing, it was insane levels of thunder and lightning. I've literally never seen anything like that. After a few hours, it finally passed through, so I recorded half my voiceover and went to bed. For whatever reason, I woke up fully rested at 6 a.m. the next morning. I looked out my window and, oh my god, it looked like a tornado ran through. Trees that have withstood everything under the sun were snapped in half, and the only one who seemed to be satisfied was a rabbit I saw munching away on fallen leaves. Regardless, that's all a mess for not me to clean up, and it really only delayed my video a few hours, but oh man, maybe I'll stop wishing for any more summertime thunderstorms. I think I've had enough. With Master Matsukatsu rescued, we return to the tea house to update Ayaka and Toma and finish Act 1. A new day upon us, we start Ayaka's story quest while Toma has a chat outside with Shinobu. You know, despite the Vision Hunt decree, they seem to have no problem standing around with their visions in view. I'm sure that's fine. I am still of the opinion that Ayaka's story quest absolutely did not need to occur within the realm of the Archon quest. Nothing severely would change if this quest optionally occurred after the Archon quest, like most other story quests. Meanwhile, like I said in my Wanderer video, Raiden's story quest would have been a great opportunity to occur as an Inazuma interlude or something, requiring us to see what happened in Inazuma post-Vision Hunt decree ending. Then again, we waited nearly 5 years for an interlude in Mondstadt, so I guess we still have time to return to Inazuma. If anything, the only saving grace Ayaka gets is the fact the story quest actually focuses on her, not a random NPC like most of the character story quests. Regardless, after a singular fight and running various errands around Inazuma, I'm starting to notice a pattern, we finish Ayaka's story quest. Yoimiya's story quest, despite losing points for being more focused on an NPC than anything else, at least is necessary to occur within the timeline of the Archon quest. Sure, you could argue that since the Sakoku decree didn't end with the Vision Hunt decree, it could have occurred after the main Archon quest storyline, but from what we know, it seems like the Sakoku decree wasn't nearly as aggressively enforced as it was during the Vision Hunt decree, so Yoimiya's story quest generally does fit better within the Archon quest. That said, why is there so much dialogue? Yoimiya, I love you, but please just Anyways, we do some gardening, beat up some soldiers, and then knock some sense into Sakajiro before watching the fireworks to finish Yoimiya's story quest. Moving straight into Act 2, we say hi to Toma, who's still outside talking to Shinobu before heading inside the tea house.
Hello. Have either of you seen Toma?
Yeah, he was right outside. You didn't see him when you came in? I was actually wondering if this would mess up the ability to continue the Archon quest, but turns out they just replaced Toma and Shinobu with Heizo investigating the wall. Again. In the exact opposite of Skirk's method of not getting involved in this world, we confront the Raiden Shogun. Okay, forgive me if this has been explained and I'm just too stupid to notice, but what happens outside when we get pulled inside the plane of Euthymia? Is it basically like the opposite of the Abyss, and the time spent in the plane of Euthymia is equivalent to like an instant in the real world? What does the outside world see? I guess maybe to that isn't the right place to question logic in any form. Regardless, we get rocked in this fight with Raiden Shogun, admittedly because I was trying too hard and focusing more on exclusively offense than offense and defense, but thanks to Toma, we managed to escape. At Toma's suggestion, we had to find the resistance force, meaning it's time to go rescue Teppei.
Fighter? Looks like he's in a tight spot. Let's go help him out.
Nice. We meet with Goro before confronting the destroyer of all solo challenges, the archery demonstration. Obviously, Skirk can't reach the dummies, so we make Kujo Sara help us train the resistance. Poetic, don't you think? Speaking of, the Shogunate army shows up, but how nice of them to stand there and let me charge Skirk's burst. Partially. Well, regardless, the rain is an advantage to us, so an easy victory. We go find Goro at the front lines and show off with the fight of honor. How'd it go? Exactly how you'd expect it to go. With that, we meet Kokomi and wrap up Act 2. Straight into Act 3, we make the long trip to Watatsumi Island, become the captain of Swordfish 2, and go deal with the Ronin around the island. I found so much entertainment in one-shotting the enemies in this challenge. Being able to just scoot away to gain energy, and then bam, battle over, iconic, truly. Wow, look at that, my 2 favorite character designs in Genshin, and my 2 most recent challenge challenge runs. Unfortunately, the next part of the quest brings another can't for Skirk, lighting the Electro Monuments. Obviously, this is something Skirk can't do, so I brought Lisa out. Could I have used Kujo Sara again? Sure, but at least we can give Lisa something to do. While we lack an ability to light up the monuments, we make up for by beating up the Lodge Earl before we go watch Tepe die. Don't worry, buddy, we'll bring you to the Abyss if you want. You can probably slow down the aging a bit, maybe. After dropping Tepe off in the Abyss, hopefully he can still fight, we head for the Delusion Factory. Skirk, surprising nobody, makes the Delusion Factory look like a piece of cake, so much so that you would genuinely think I overleveled her. But nope, she's just running with a 2-piece Berserker, a level 40 Harbinger of Dawn, and, well, Centuries in the Abyss. I enjoy a reunion with Scaramouche before we go with Yaimigo to suffer through Anti-Raiden Shogun training. Could I have survived the hard mode of Anti-Raiden Shogun training? Maybe. Do I want to put myself through that? Absolutely not. If there's an easy mode, I will do it. Work smarter, not harder. I do, however, completely ignore the challenge of dodging the lightning in the second round, though, and just use it to my advantage. Sort of. With fighting the enemies. It's probably for the best that they don't count how many times you get struck by lightning in this round. That would have been unfortunate. With that done, we go meet with Sayu before bringing her to Ayaka and Toma. After our last supper, we go get some fireworks from Yoimiya. Wait, is that Mizuki? I love this event so much, it's so... Wait, Layla? Actually, I think I saw a clip of this on Twitter. Well, I'll leave you two to work, or whatever. Moving on, we light up some fireworks. I managed to not get caught, which is surprising actually, and so now it's time to confront the Kujo clan with Sara. So if you're a regular on my channel, first of all, I appreciate you all very much. I absolutely notice people who are frequently commenting on my videos or interacting with them, and there are some people who all wonder where they are when they don't comment, like Bob, who usually makes puns. Come back, I enjoy your puns. So please know I do very much appreciate each comment, even if I don't have time to properly reply to them all. But back on topic, for channel regulars, what's up next? Well, this video proved to me that I have gotten much faster with editing videos. I feel like I've finally gotten a bit of a streamlined process, so now it's time to put it into action. My next videos are of course a new Archons Only and Gaming Only Part 1. But then from there, I think I'll primarily work on adjusting myself into that goal video schedule that I mentioned earlier. I'm thinking I'll probably just get Arlecchino done and out of the way, and post Fontaine and Natlan back to back, so that I can finally get to Mualani. With the 3 rounds of the soldiers defeated, it's finally time for our penultimate fight in Inazuma, the Ice Queen of the Abyss versus the Crimson Witch of Embers. Circling back to the previous topic, I'm torn if I want to do Mualani, Sumeru through Natlan, or if I want to make one video of Sumeru and Fontaine, and then a longer video of Mualani and Natlan with her tribal quest, since that's essentially the Natlan equivalent to a story quest. Though, actually, is that quest required to do in the Natlan Archon quest like Ayaka and Yoimiya were for Inazuma? Goes to show how quickly my brain erases playthroughs. Sometimes I see people who question how challenge runners can repeat the story quest over and over, and honestly, at least for me, my brain practically erases it after a bit of time, so it's like refreshing my memory again. That said, I've more or less become one with muscle memory in Mondstadt and Liyue. For those, I'm usually watching YouTube video essays on my other monitor. What am I watching lately? Animal Crossing challenges, a deep dive into Dance Moms, a Webkinz iceberg for some reason, and the entire FNAF timeline, because I am a weenie and hate jump scares, so I never played Five Nights at Freddy's, but I've always been immensely fascinated by the lore. I was trying to watch One Piece, but one of the struggles with older anime in general is the first half of the episodes tend to be dedicated to recaps of the last episode. That was great when you watched it weekly as it aired, but it's far less great when you're trying to watch multiple episodes in one single sitting. I spent an unfortunate amount of time minimizing my Genshin window to fast forward through the recaps, and the openings, and the credits, and the next time segments, all to the point that it felt like I was wasting more time than anything else. And this isn't exclusive to One Piece. This happened when I tried to watch Bleach, and when I was trying to rewatch Naruto and Fairy Tail, so I gave up on the endeavor. With Signora defeated, now it's time for our final fight with A. Well, all I can say in regards with my previous yap is, wow, that dramatically changed from the original topic. Oops. Well, yeah, circling back to the original topic, I've got a pretty good idea of a future plan for now, so I'll just have to find a balance between working extra hard to compensate for my frequent health episodes, while also not burning myself out and triggering said health episodes. I really need to get into a habit of at least editing and partially scripting videos to have on the back burner, so I don't end up going a month without uploading again. But I am also an enjoyer of instant gratification, and reading everyone's comments excited when I upload a video makes me want to just upload every time I finish a video, instead of, you know, proper planning. I'm sure I'll figure out a middle ground, eventually. With A admitting defeat, we've completed Inazuma, meaning all that's left to do in this video is head to the chasm to reunite with Dainsleif. Unfortunately, that also means a reunion with an incredibly annoying enemy. After heading into the chasm to investigate for the commissioner, we run into Dainsleif. We're still a little salty because he lied by omission by not informing us he knew our twin, but well, we also lied to him about not knowing Certology's whereabouts, so I guess we can call it even? Unfortunately, during the entirety of this quest, the sun was in a position that I could not see my monitor at all. I ended up trying to play while looking at the recording in OBS on my other monitor because it wasn't being hit with glare like my main monitor was. Because of that, I fell down and ended up needing to completely restart the fight with the Black Serpent Knights. Oops. I can kind of see why having the light we get from the Chasm Delver's quest would make this much easier. After struggling to find my way around in the darkness, I finally managed to make it to the Hilly Trail camp, which is lit up by a single campfire and the backdrop of the lovely hue of purple poison goo. Great. We reunite with the Abyss Herald. I have another enjoyable time beating it up before going and taking on the Abyss Lector. And don't worry, I'll suffer in the next video with the Cryo Herald during Kari Bear. While we fight, I gotta know, what have you guys been watching? Two of my favorite shows, Kaiju number 8 and My Dress Up Darling, are both airing their season 2 during the summer, so I am thrilled. But I'd like to maybe binge something in between episode releases. Bonus if it's something I can watch while recording. Or maybe I'll finally catch up on Witch Watch. After fighting the Abyss Lector, it's time to fight the 4 rounds of Abyss Mages. Unfortunately, of the 4 fights, 2 have Cryo Mages. So on the topic of shows, I'm really into like royal or fantasy related or isekais. I've recently been rewatching The Apothecary Diaries, but I also recently finished The Two Perfect Saint, season 2 of Hanako, though I think season 3 is also airing this summer, as well as a few of the villainous shows and The Raven of the Inner Court, which was phenomenal. I've been trying to find good Chinese palace historical fantasies, similar to Psychic Princess or The Demonic King. If you have any you like, definitely share them. I'm not sure why I've been so into these types of shows lately, but it's been primarily what I watch. Maybe it's just a little bit of homesickness from my home world. Regardless, we've finally beaten up the Abyss Mages, foiling our twins' plan and completing the Chasm quest, which also means we've reached the end of this video. I'll obviously prioritize getting the older challenges finished before updating this, but hopefully it won't take too long. Don't forget, if you haven't watched my last video, there's a contest with a Welkin Moon prize for helping me name my Wanderer. A special shout out to my channel members, and if you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time!